Hey everyone, how's it going? Good to see all you kids and parents out there. If you guys can hear me okay, give me a thumbs up. Yeah? All right, I see lots of thumbs up there. Look at all you familiar faces out there. It's so great to see everyone. Well, I tell you what, we got a lot to talk about today, so we're going to jump right in, all right? So for starters, for those of you who have not met me or me not met you before, I'm Billy Doran. I run Fossil Posse Adventures, and I am your local Playleontologist. I love dinosaurs in the prehistoric world. And at Fossil Posse, we teach all about dinosaurs and all kinds of other cool stuff. Fossilposse.com if you want more information. Also, I want to thank everyone that's been donating to the museum. The museum at Dinosaur Junction, we have raised some money from you guys, from all of you all, to get some really cool stuff, like these things right here, which I'm going to talk about because we got a great show today. So I've been working on the museum the last couple days, actually, putting things together, getting ready for this summer. I moved the Tyrannosaurus Rex yesterday. That's going to be really cool. All this information at fossilposse.com. Feel free to donate. The more money, the better we can make our museum. Every little bit helps. Also, remember this June, Fossil Quest, the TV show. I take you guys out in the field to go hunt dinosaurs with me. It'll be a lot of fun. All right, so we're going to start. We're going to get to this guy in a second because he's my favorite. But for those of you guys who love Spinosaurus, I know there's a lot of you guys out there that love Spinosaurus, right? The big finback dinosaur, one of the largest meat eaters ever, bigger than T-Rex. For you Spinosaurus lovers, parents, you don't want to hear this, but you can take your Spinosaurus toys and throw them away. You know why? Because of science. Science is so cool. Just recently, some paleontologists found the missing piece of Spinosaurus fossils, and that's the tail. For so long, they just assumed Spinosaurus had a long, thin tail like T-Rex or like a lizard. But just recently, they actually found a complete tail to Spinosaurus, and it looks more like a crocodile's tail. It's really tall and really razor thin and perfect for swimming through the water. So that's what's so cool about science, is they're discovering new things all the time, and they're always changing what our knowledge is about dinosaurs. And that literally just happened. So Spinosaurus now does not have a lizard tail. It's got a long, tall, flat crocodile tail for swimming in the water. So my question is, does that make Spinosaurus the first aquatic dinosaur? Because maybe, remember, up to now, there were no aquatic or water dinosaurs. The only ones that lived there were like Mosasaurus and Plesiosaurs, which are marine reptiles. Does that make Spinosaurus officially a water dinosaur? We shall see. But it's exciting nonetheless. So I thought you guys would really love to hear about that. All right, let's get on to the show today because I'm really excited. You can kind of tell. We are talking about this guy or girl, however you want to call it, Allosaurus. One of my favorite dinosaurs. If there's a lot of you guys know out there, definitely one of my favorite dinosaurs. The first dinosaur fossils I ever found were from Allosaurus. And he or she was an amazing dinosaur. And actually, here's something funny. T-Rex gets all the credit in the movies and TV shows, but it was Allosaurus that first graced the screen in the movies almost 95 years ago. Allosaurus was the first dinosaur that was depicted in a movie called The Lost World almost 95 years ago. And it was about 10 years later before T-Rex kind of took over and pushed Allosaurus out of Hollywood. I think it's going to come back pretty soon. Well, let's take a look at Allosaurus. One of the most amazing dinosaurs ever. A vicious predator, a Jurassic era dinosaur. So this dinosaur, Allosaurus, lived millions of years before T-Rex. Remember, there's the Triassic period, the Jurassic period, and the Cretaceous period. The Cretaceous period is where T-Rex lived. And then 80 million years before Tyrannosaurus Rex, in the Jurassic period, was Allosaurus. So you can kind of look at Allosaurus as T-Rex's great grandma and grandpa, basically, right? This is an Allosaur. T-Rex was a Tyrannosaur, but still, Allosaurus got almost as long as T-Rex. Some say maybe 40 feet, but probably closer to 35 on the big end. But Allosaurus was way different. If we look at a T-Rex toy and an Allosaurus toy, they're almost the same length. T-Rex is just a little bit longer, but look how much more fat and bigger around T-Rex was. T-Rex had a much bigger head. T-Rex was a much more solid dinosaur, but Allosaurus, even though it was still 30, 35 feet long and weighed anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 pounds, was pretty fast. He could run about 20 to 25 miles per hour. So when next time you're driving in your car with your mom or dad, say, hey, mom or dad, go 20 miles per hour or 25 miles per hour. And that's about how fast this giant predator could run. And it was a big, mean dinosaur for sure. Had a pretty big head. In fact, if we take a good look at Allosaurus, let's go through Allosaurus's face right here. This picture is probably about life size. That's probably about how big Allosaurus's head really was. So if I stand up and go over here, my head inside Allosaurus's head, that's about how big he was, right? Woohoo! He was very unique too, or she, because here's one of the things that made Allosaurus very unique and special and weird and different. They had horns over their eyes. They had these weird horns that grew up. There was this shelf of like growth, kind of like keratin. We always talk about keratin. It's the stuff claws are made out of, your fingernails, your hair, and it would have grown out. If we look at the skull, this is an Allosaurus skull right here. This is a replica, in case you guys are wondering. And we're going to take all of our questions in a little while, for those of you guys that remember that. I'm going to talk for a little while, and then we'll take all the questions you have. So just hold tight with your questions, and I'll announce when we take those. But here is that horn piece right here. If you can see it, right behind my hand. Now, this would be made of bone. That's part of the skull, right? So this would have grown. There would have been that piece, kind of like your fingernails, and above that, kind of like a rhinoceros's horn, the keratin would have grown out and made this big kind of horn that came out right over Allosaurus's eye. Maybe it was for showing off. It probably wasn't for fighting because it's just too small, and Allosaurus had a big head, big skull. So it probably was for showing off, maybe to hide sun, maybe a shade of some sort helped Allosaurus hunt. We're not sure, but it was pretty unique to Allosaurus. If we look at the nose, here's Allosaurus's nostrils right here, just like ours are right here, right? There's Allosaurus's, and you can see this big area right here. There's the same area in the skull. And a lot of people, just like with T-Rex, they think that their eyes were right here, under the horn. Actually, no. This big open area where my hand is this big area right here. And a lot of it was just open, hollow space. And a lot of what it was for was to make Allosaurus's head lighter. When it had to run around and carry it, it didn't want a real heavy neck or heavy head because it would be walking around, its neck would get tired. So these openings made his head lighter so he could move around easier and it wasn't so heavy, right? That's what these are. If you're wondering where Allosaurus's eye was, there it is. It's just behind the horn. So it would be right here. Just behind the horn was where Allosaurus's eye was. And a lot of people say, did dinosaurs have ears? And we've had that question in the past. They sure did. You can see it right here. There's Allosaurus's ear. All dinosaurs had ears. Reptiles have ears. And here's where the ear would have been, right back in this opening right here. Because that would have been directly next to where its brain was. So it would have been able to sense all that stuff. So they were pretty unique animals. Another thing I want to talk about is where they were found. Where was Allosaurus? Where did Allosaurus live, right? Well, I told you I found Allosaurus here in Colorado. So Allosaurus lived here in Colorado and a lot of the states here in the western United States where there's a lot of Jurassic era fossils, right? So they found a lot of them in Colorado. But Allosaurus also lived in Europe, in the country of Portugal, they found fossils, and also in Africa. But you remember way back long ago, the continent of Pangaea, where all the land masses were one giant island, right? And it slowly started breaking up right at the beginning of the Jurassic period. So basically what happened was Allosaurus's distant cousins were part of that as it broke up, and they survived and they rode those continents as they moved across the world, and they went on to evolve very similar to what Allosaurus is today. And Allosaurus also had a pretty strange way of biting stuff. If we look at this skull right here, this is a pretty big mouth, right? It's pretty wide, but actuality, Allosaurus could open his mouth really wide like that. And they think what he could do, because he's got pretty relatively small teeth, right? If you look at a T-Rex skull, it's got huge teeth. A lot of big meat eaters have big teeth relative to the mouth, the size of their mouth. Allosauruses are kind of small, and here's one of the reasons why. If we look at, I'm going to go into the treasure chest here. if we look at a Tyrannosaur tooth, right? You guys have seen this tooth before. There's a real Tyrannosaur tooth. It's kind of like a knife. And if I hold up this steak knife right here, these edges right here, they're called serrations. You know that word, right? And serrations help a knife cut into whatever it is you're cutting to eat your meal, right? Well, dinosaur teeth, a lot of them had the same thing. And in the T-Rex teeth, they had one side, this side right in the inside. So if it was in its mouth like this side here had serrations all over it. Every single tooth had serrations, and it helped T-Rex, when it bit into something, cut into that meat. Now, one of the things that makes Allosaurus's teeth so unique and so cool is Allosaurus had serrations, just like this steak knife, on both sides of his teeth. So on both sides of the teeth, they had these serrations for cutting right into meat when it was biting into a dinosaur. And what they think it would do is it would open its mouth really wide and slam its upper mouth on the animal and just sink those teeth in. And then it would pull back and rip out big pieces of meat from the dinosaur it was hunting. Kind of scary, huh? It would have been a scary animal. Imagine a huge great white shark, right? The biggest great white shark you can think of. I wouldn't want to go in the water with that, right? But imagine that great white shark if it had a body and legs and it could chase you on land. That's kind of what Allosaurus was like. A big animal, a very hungry animal with a lot of teeth, with a lot of serrations for cutting into something like that. It was an amazing creature. And if we look at something else really unique about it, this is one of the things that your guys' donations helped us buy for the museum. Check this out. This is the foot to Allosaurus. This is probably a kind of a small one. Look how big that foot is. This would have been the right foot. You guys know your left foot and your right foot, right? This would have been, I'm going to put it on the right side. And they know that because of this little dew claw here. Your dogs and cats have this. Birds today have this. It's a little toe that kind of hangs up off of the ground for the most part. But that's on the inside of your foot, kind of like on your hand. Your thumb is on the inside. This little toe is on the inside, so that makes this the right foot. And if I put this down, it is kind of heavy, and pick up just one toe. There's the middle toe to Allosaurus. Look at the size of that. That's one toe. Now remember, in real life, if we add all the muscles and the skin, then the foot would have been way bigger. But one of the things that would have been way bigger, and you guys remember this from when we talk about claws and horns and spikes. Do you remember what the difference would have been in real life? Yeah, I know a lot of you guys got this, right? If we look at this right here, this is the fossil piece. This was made of bone, right? In real life, remember that keratin we talked about, that our fingernails and hair and a rhinoceros's horn is made from? In real life, this claw would have had a giant piece of keratin on it. So the claw would have been super long, way longer than what's left as a fossil. So that's about how big an Allosaurus's toe claw would have been on that middle toe. And it would have been the same thing if we look at a hand claw. There's a single hand claw from Allosaurus. And the same thing, if we put that keratin on there, one claw on his 3 fingers would have been super big. And you want to see how big Allosaurus's hand was? Well, this is another thing that your donations helped us buy at the Museum of Dinosaur Junction. Look at this. That is one hand from Allosaurus. Look at the size of the fingers. Look at the size of that giant claw right here. You imagine with that piece of keratin, this is a big one. It would have been even longer than that. And Allosaurus had pretty decent, strong arms. So it could pin down something. It could hold on to an animal as it's attacking it. And as it's sinking these claws deep into that poor animal, holding it down while it tore it apart with this huge mouth. They were vicious animals. And a lot of people wonder, scientists wonder, well, what dinosaurs could Allosaurus eat? Well, a lot of you guys who I've spoken to, we know from the fossil evidence, because fossils never lie, right? That Stegosaurus and Allosaurus used to tangle with each other. They used to fight each other. And we know that from injuries and damage on the fossilized bones, both on Stegosaurus with teeth marks from Allosaurus and on Allosaurus himself with holes where Stegosaurus hit him with that spiked tail, and the holes went right into his bone, into it, making a hole. So the fossils never lie. The fossils teach us about what these guys were like, even though they were millions and millions and tens of millions and sometimes hundreds of millions of years old. In addition to Stegosaurus, there's a good chance that Allosaurus could take on bigger dinosaurs like Apatosaurus. And you're probably going, how the heck could Allosaurus take down an Apatosaurus? Apatosauruses were 50 tons, 40 tons. They were 80 feet long, 60 feet long. They were gigantic. Well, there's baby Apatosauruses, right? There's young teenagers. There's ones that might get injured, falling down, or maybe getting attacked from something else, but not necessarily dying, right? And there's really old Apatosauruses, right? So those are the kind of Apatosauruses Allosaurus might be able to take down. In addition, they think there's a possibility that maybe if enough Allosaurus got together and didn't fight each other, they might be able to bring down a full-grown Apatosaurus by taking little bites. And it would take a while. It might take days. It might take a week. They would run up and take a bite, run away. Run up, take a bite, run away. And that Apatosaurus had that would get an infection, right? Because if you get a cut and you don't put a Band-Aid on it, it'll get infected. Well, imagine a mouth from Allosaurus full of all kinds of bacteria from eating raw meat and dead stuff, right? And then getting bit by that. So you might get a really bad infection. So Allosaurus, it didn't mind. It would take its time. Even though it was really hungry, it might take a week to bring down that Apatosaurus. But once it does, it's got food for a long, long, long time. So Allosaurus, in my book, is one of the coolest dinosaurs ever. As I mentioned, he lived all over Colorado. In fact, there's a spot in Colorado called the Franklin Lloyd Quarry. I believe that's what it's called. And it's in Utah. Sorry, it's in Utah. And in that quarry, in that dinosaur place where they've been digging up bones for over 100 years, they've pulled out, I think, 76 or 78 dinosaurs. And of that number, 46 of them were Allosauruses. Imagine that, Allosauruses. Imagine finding 46 skeletons of Allosaurus. Wouldn't that be awesome? But they're out there. There were a lot of them. They lived for millions of years, and they changed and changed, but they were an incredible creature. My favorite dinosaur, Allosaurus, for sure. All right, guys, there's a kind of a rundown of all that good stuff, and now I think it's time for some questions, because I see your guys' brains going about there. So let's see what you guys want to know about my favorite, Allosaurus. Lily, what do you got?
Ollie asks, how did dinosaurs get their names?
How did dinosaurs get their names? Terrific question. In fact, the name Allosaurus means different lizard. That's what it means. Saurus in Greek or in Latin means lizard, and allo means different. And they call it Allosaurus, different lizard, because his backbones were really unique. Remember, your backbone, your spine, is made up of different individual bones called vertebra, which is when we talk about a vertebrate animal or an invertebrate animal, like a bug's an invertebrate, doesn't have a spine. Mammals, us, dolphins, dogs, cats, dinosaurs, we're vertebrate because we have vertebra that stack up and make our spine, right? Well, Allosaurus's vertebra were very unique. They weren't so much like this. They were more of an hourglass shape. And when scientists first found those, they thought, this is really different. So his name means different lizard. Then you got something like Stegosaurus. And this is a really great question about how dinosaurs get their names. It has all different kinds of factors that can be involved in it. Stegosaurus means roofed lizard, because when they first found Stegosaurus, remember Stegosaurus has the big plates on his back. But when they first found the fossils, they had never seen a Stegosaurus skeleton. They weren't sure what it looked like, where the plates went. And for a long time, they thought the plates were flat on his back and made like a roof covering part of him, which is kind of funny to think about now. So Stegosaurus means roofed lizard. Triceratops, well, ceratops means horns, horned face. So Triceratops means 3 horns. Pentaceratops means 5 horns. Cosmoceratops means crazy horns, because Cosmoceratops had a really weird skull with all kinds of funny things going on. So the name of a dinosaur can have to do with what it was like, its physical traits. Was it big? Was it small? Was it fast? Did it have sharp teeth? Did it have plates? Or sometimes it has to do with the person that found it. Because whoever finds a dinosaur that has never been seen by science, and it's a brand new species or type of dinosaur, they get to name it. And some people like to put their name in the dinosaur's name. But usually it has something to do with describing what the dinosaur looks like. So Ollie, great question about how they get their names. Yeah, next one.
Walker's got a lot of great questions.
Uh-oh, Walker's got a bunch of questions. All right, Walker, what do you got?
He asked if Allosaurus was related to T-Rex.
Okay, let's start with that one because that's a great one. Walker asked, is Allosaurus related to T-Rex? Not really, but they're similar in the sense that they're both theropods, right? Theropods are dinosaurs that walk on 2 feet. They usually have the hands. They run around on big feet. They're theropod carnivores. They both eat meat. They both were vicious dinosaurs. But here's a funny thing. Animals change over time. So during the Jurassic period, 150 million years ago, Allosaurus was the top predator. There was Tyrannosaurus at the time, not T-Rex. He wasn't around yet. There was Tyrannosaurs that were pretty small. So they were down lower on the food chain. Allosaurus was the top predator, and little Tyrannosaurs were kind of down here, kind of like, think of like little raptors running around. But over millions and millions of years, as the Jurassic period turned into the Cretaceous period, both those positions, right, those roles swapped. So the top predator, Allosaurus, and the little Tyrannosaurs, slowly over time, evolved and changed. The conditions changed, the temperatures, the plants, the food, and for whatever reason, they started to change. And eventually, as you get into the Cretaceous period, the Tyrannosaurs get bigger, and the Allosaurus get smaller. Now remember, with Tyrannosaurs, there's lots of different kinds. Tyrannosaurs is like saying bears, right? If I say, look at the bears, you might go, well, what kind of bear? Grizzly bear, polar bear, black bear, brown bear, Kodiak bear, sloth bear. There's all these different kinds of bears. Tyrannosaur is the same way, the same thing like that. It's just with Tyrannosaurs, we have Albertosaurus, Nanotyrannus, Carcharodontosaurus. Tyrannosaurus rex is the most famous tyrannosaur. So there's different kinds. So over time from the Jurassic, Allosaurus, top predator, Tyrannosaurus little. And as the times changed and went into Cretaceous, the Tyrannosaurus took over and the Allosaurus got smaller. So even in the Cretaceous, there was types of Allosaurs. There wasn't Allosaurus, right? But there was types of allosaurs in that family of allosaurs. We just call them different types of dinosaurs. So they're kind of like distant cousins. Hopefully that makes some sense. That's a great question. What was another one that Walker had?
When was the first Allosaurus found?
First Allosaurus was found back in the 1800s. So around 150 years ago was the first one found. And they found a lot of them since. They're one of the most popular dinosaur fossils, at least in Colorado, because there's so many of them. So even someone who's an amateur paleontologist or an amateur fossil hunter, if they're in the right area, they can go out and find Allosaurus bones. In fact, if I go back into my treasure chest of fossils, here's a little piece of Allosaurus. I didn't find this. I have found Allosaurus bones. There's a bunch of Allosaurus bones right down the street from where I'm sitting. There's vertebra and all kinds of stuff, and there's a bunch of footprints. But here's a piece that I bought from a private collector who found this on private land. That's why he could sell it. And it's just a chunk of bone. It's just a piece, but there's lots of them out there. Allosaurus, there was millions and millions and millions and millions of Allosauruses during the time that they were alive. So there's lots and lots of bones. So yes, there's that about 150 years ago or so was the first Allosaurus. Another great question. All right.
And Walker's last great question is, did Allosaurus care about their young?
Walker's question, did Allosaurus care about their young? That's a tough one. I think that they kind of did in the sense that crocodiles and alligators do to some extent. They'll guard the nest to a point. When the babies hatch, they'll look out for the babies for a little while because remember, just like all reptiles, just like crocodiles, snakes, lizards, dinosaurs, once they hatch out of the shell, they're ready to go. They don't have to sit with mommy and be taken care of and have their diapers changed and have a bottle of milk, right? Once they hatch out of the egg, they got teeth, they got claws, they're little, but they're ready to go. So mom would probably look out for them for a little while and then they're on their own. Exactly. Another great question. Yeah. All right. What else we got?
All right. Cormac asked, did Allosaurus have brains?
Cormac asks, did Allosaurus have brains? Absolutely. In fact, all animals have brains. Everything has brains for the most part. When you start talking about microscopic things, even jellyfish, I'd have to look that up, but anything that's vertebrate, even bugs have brains. There's a little spot up in the skull, and it's a little opening, and that's how they can tell how big a certain dinosaur's brain was. So, for example, Stegosaurus, we talked about. Stegosaurus's head was about this big. From the front to the back of his skull was about this big. But Stegosaurus's brain was about the size of a golf ball. So Stegosaurus probably wasn't real smart. Now, raptors, their brains were pretty big in relation to the size of their whole head, right? We got big brains. Our brains take up more than half, probably half of our skull is our brain sitting up there. So raptors had pretty big brains compared to their size. So they were probably one of the smartest. So yes, Allosaurus absolutely had a brain, and his was pretty average size. So he wasn't a dumb dinosaur. Maybe there's a chance that maybe they would get together and they would figure out some kind of way to attack a big dinosaur, all helping each other out, kind of like killer whales do that sometimes. A lot of animals do that. Monkeys will do that. They'll get together and make a plan and figure out how to take down something because they're hungry. So Allosaurus probably did something very similar. Yep.
Stella asks, how long did Allosaurus live, and was it a scavenger?
Aha. Hi, Stella. Great to hear from you in California there. How old did Allosaurus get? How long did they live? And were they a scavenger? Well, I'll answer the second part first, Stella. Yes, but they were also predators. Because here's the thing about predators, and dinosaurs are predators, so are lions, so are tigers, so are sharks. If they have to, they'll eat whatever they can eat that's in front of them. That's called an opportunistic feeder. And animals like that, that need a lot of fuel and a lot of meat, if there's meat in front of them and it's something they did not kill, if it's already dead, they will eat it. Because they might not get a meal for a while, so they'll eat it. If it's there, they will eat it. But they will also kill something on their own and eat it. So they were kind of both. They were both. They're predator and they're also scavenger. Probably the same with T-Rex, because animals that big, they need food, right? And they can't wait around. If food is there, they're going to eat it. And your other question, how long did they live? Terrific question. Allosaurus got to be an adult, full-grown adult at about 15 years old. And they lived to about 25 years old, maybe 30. And that's not very long, right? You're a full-grown, old Allosaurus at 25 years old. And believe me, that is not an easy life for Allosaurus. They discovered an Allosaurus skeleton a while back, probably about 20 or 30 years ago, and his nickname was Big Al. They called him Big Al. And Al was a teenager. Al was about 15 to 18 years old. So it reached adulthood. It was an adult Allosaurus. And when it died, it had already broken and healed about 12 different bones in its body. You could see where the bone was broken and it healed, right? It also had infections in its toenails and in some of its joints. So this Allosaurus at 15 years old led a very painful life, like a lot of predators did. So they probably lived to be about 25, maybe 30, and they were both scavengers and predators, very likely. Good question. Stella, you always have a great question. All right, next one. Cormac.
What is the smartest dinosaur you've ever found?
What's the smartest dinosaur I've ever found? Well, I have found pieces of raptors, different kind of raptors. We're not sure what pieces because they were just kind of random bones. I found pieces of a Dilophosaurus once. So probably those would be the smarter ones. Yeah, is my guess. Well, then also, I guess Allosaurus. It's the first pieces I ever found were Allosaurus. And Allosaurus was a pretty smart dinosaur as well. You know, real quick, I want to interrupt real quick. And hopefully my friend Sarah is watching because today is Sarah's birthday. So happy birthday, Sarah. Hope you're having a terrific day and have a wonderful one as well. Also, I want to welcome Lars. Lars, if you're out there somewhere, pal, really good to see you watching. And make sure you ask a question if you want. Otherwise, I plan on seeing you this summer at Posse. All right, next question.
I have Cormac. How tall are Allosaurus teeth?
Oh, good question. How big or how tall are Allosaurus teeth? They're relatively small compared to the size of their head, right? Allosaurus's head, as you look in this picture right here, that's about how big a full-grown Allosaurus was. That's a big animal. If I put my hand right there, remember like before, I'll do it again because it's kind of funny. If I put my head in there, that's about how big. I mean, Allosaurus could pretty much eat me in 1 or 2 bites, depending on how big his throat was. But his teeth were probably only about 3 or 4 inches long. The part that stuck out, maybe a little bit less. Whereas a Tyrannosaurus Rex, their teeth, remember you've seen those. Here's a Tyrannosaurus Rex tooth. Look at the size of that. That's gigantic. Now this part right here, between my fingers right here, that's the part that sticks up in his jaw. So this part from my hands down right here, that's the part that sticks out into their mouth, like these right here. So Allosauruses were much, much smaller. If I hold that right there, you can see just the part sticking out. They're different. They were smaller, and they were also different. Remember I said T-Rex had those serrations only on one side? Allosaurus had serrations on both sides. So his teeth might not have been as big as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, for example, but they could do a lot of damage. It's like just all these knives. They had about 32 teeth in their mouth, and they could just rip into something really violently. So they would have been very scary animals indeed. And they lost a lot of teeth. just like sharks and a lot of dinosaurs, their teeth would fall out and a new one would grow back, and they'd fall out and a new one would grow back their whole life. So actually, one of the more common Allosaurus fossils to find is Allosaurus teeth, because they would shed them. They get old or chipped or broken, and they would just fall out and a new one would come in. So yeah, that's about how big their teeth were. They weren't giant, but they were dangerous. Yeah. All right, next question.
Henry asks, how long does it take to find a fossil?
How long does it take to find a fossil? You know what, Henry? That's a really tough question, and I'll tell you why. Some scientists, there's paleontologists out there that have never found a fossil dinosaur or dinosaur pieces. They just haven't. And there's some other people, there's kids just like you guys that have been walking with their parents at a department store, and on the way to the car, they walk up a dirt pile because there's a construction site going on, and there's a big dinosaur bone sitting right there. So there's so many different factors as to what it takes to find a fossil, and also what kind of fossil you're looking for. Are you looking for a shell? Because there's millions and trillions of shells. If you're looking for an Allosaurus skull, that's going to be a little more difficult, but not impossible. If you're in the right area, in the right rock, and you know what you're looking for, you can find them. And the best way to figure out how to find fossils is to read books. Read as much as you can and learn about what fossils look like. When you go to a museum, don't just look at the dinosaur and go, that's pretty cool. Really look at it. Look at it closely and study what it looks like. What does the outside look like? If there's a bone that's broken in half, what does the inside look like? Because the biggest part of fossil hunting is these right here, right? And then the next thing is your brain. You see something and you figure out what it is. So read lots of books, but there's literally millions upon billions upon trillions of fossils in the world that have never been found, and they're just waiting for you. All right, next question.
Nika asks, how did they use their teeth?
Nika, terrific question. How did Allosaurus use his teeth? If you remember before, I was saying Allosaurus was peculiar because he could open his mouth super wide. T-Rex, not so much. Allosaurus could open his mouth unusually wide, and he would take this big upper row, all of these up here, and they would slam it like a vice grip. Bam! They'd slam down that animal, and then they'd kind of pull back like that and rip meat from the dinosaur. So it would have been dangerous and really kind of gross, but that's what it was. Their teeth weren't big for ripping out giant hunks like a T-Rex. They were for inflicting a lot of damage, making the animal bleed real bad, and hopefully it would just lay down and die from losing blood. And then the Allosaurus wouldn't have to worry about getting injured trying to kill it. So their teeth were used for like ripping stuff up rather than just taking a big hunk like a T-Rex. So hopefully that answers your question. Good one though. Next one.
Cormac is asking how about Allosaurus' eyesight, how good it is.
Allosaurus' eyesight. Allosaurus, like a lot of predator dinosaurs, probably had amazing eyesight. His eyes were located kind of not on the side like a plant eater, but almost halfway. So his eyesight could look straight ahead, kind of like an eagle. Look at a picture of an eagle, and that's probably very similar to what T-Rex, Allosaurus, and various raptors, what their eyes looked like. The eyes from birds like owls and eagles and hawks and vultures, basically you're looking in the eyes of dinosaurs. So the way those eyes were set, they had probably very good vision. They could see in front, and they could see all the way back to about here. And they looked for movement and all kinds of good stuff. Is that it? Is that all we got? You guys, awesome questions. I hope you enjoyed the show today. Allosaurus, Billy the Playleontologist's favorite dinosaur, Allosaurus, and he was terrific. And make sure you can contact me. Remember, fossilposse.com for anything you want to ask me. You can message me ideas, you can message me questions, whatever you want. But fossilposse.com. Donate to the museum, help us grow, book a session at camp this summer. Either way, it's great to have you guys. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next Wednesday. I got to figure out what we're going to do, but it's going to be great. So take care. Bye-bye.